Podcasting from Boston, Massachusetts and Los Angeles, California, this is AV Shop Talk, covering the latest audiovisual trends and emerging technologies. This is where the AV pros come to talk shop, with your hosts, Nate Schneider and Jason Griffin.
All right. We are live on this Wednesday night in February. It is the 4th, and it is the year 2015. Thank you so much for everybody who may be joining live right now and viewing this very live stream. Jason and I are happy to welcome to the show two folks that you may have heard of. One goes by the name of Tim Albright, and the other, Chris Neto. Guys that are associated with AV Nation in addition to working full-time in the systems integration world. So we're happy to talk with them specifically about Kickstarter and something pretty cool that they were able to accomplish through crowdsourcing. And it ties right in to ISE 2015, and the timing couldn't be better for that. These guys are gearing up for their trip, and we're going to find out more from them about their story. And, I'm going to kick it over to Jason right now and just do some quick introductions to hear from the guys that are on the call.
Yeah, thanks, Nate, and I'll echo Nate's sentiment. Thank you, everybody, for taking the time to join us this evening. We're excited to bring you this episode of AV Shop Talk Live. I know Nate there is riding high on a big Super Bowl win from this weekend.
Oh yeah, I got to get the Patriots logo up on the screen.
Very well done. Very nice.
So that's exciting. It was a great game, but we're not a sports show here, so let's jump right into the meat and potatoes. I'm assuming pretty much everybody in our audience is familiar with Tim and Chris, but just in case there's people out there watching or listening in the future who aren't, let's do some personal introductions. So we'll start with you, Tim. Why don't you give our audience just a brief introduction?
Okay. My name is Tim Albright. I'm Director of Operations for an independent programming and design consulting firm called Innovad, Innovations in Design in St. Louis. In addition to that, about 4 years ago, a group of us kind of got together and started a podcast. It was a combination of two things. I have a broadcast background, spent a number of years in St. Louis media, and found myself in the audiovisual industry. Love it, and after a few years in there, just kind of said, okay, there's this podcasting thing, and I've been teaching podcasting to audio students since about 2006. And I said, you know what, there's something here, right? I was a big fan of Leo Laporte and the TWIP network, big fan of Revision 3, and so I'm like, you know what, there's not really anybody doing kind of a weekly wrap-up, right? I mean, SEN has been doing a podcast for years. Sound of Communications did one. Testa has done one. Testa has done one. But there was really nobody taking it, all the stuff, right? All the news, all the stuff that all these really great reporters were reporting on, and condensing it down, taking half a dozen of them, getting really smart people on, and saying, okay, why does this matter, right? Why does it matter that AMX is bought by Harman? Why does it matter that this or that and the other next week? Why does ISE matter? And so all I do is I ask, really smart people really dumb questions, and they're crazy enough to answer me. So,
very good. Little false modesty there. I think it's a great show. Definitely one I really enjoy, and I know that a lot of other people in our industry really enjoy it as well. And so we commend you for all the hard work you do on that show. It's very insightful, informative, and definitely very well produced. So we really appreciate all the hard work that you put into that, and thank you so much for coming on the show this evening to join us. Secondly, we'll introduce another guest here that I think most everyone in our audience knows very well, Chris Neto. Chris, how are you?
Doing well, man. How's everything?
Very good, very good. So for anyone in our audience who may not be familiar with you, why don't you give them kind of a brief introduction of you and your personal background, and maybe you can also touch on your background as a blogger and sort of the recent convergence of the Red Band initiative kind of into the AV Nation family.
Okay. Well, as many of you know, from Twitter and from stuff like that, I'm constantly active, very involved, and that started about 3 years ago. I got actually into the blogging world by accident. I was leaving corporate client that I was working for. I've been in AV for about 15 years, but for a chunk of that, about 6 years, I spent on site with a client. I worked for a pharmaceutical company directly in New Jersey as an on-site AV engineer, and started to feel like my days were being numbered as layoffs. I mean, it's corporate America. It was about 4 years ago. Sort of felt it coming, so I started getting involved in social media. Sent an email out when my job at Merck came to an end. I was part of a big layoff. I guess 25,000 people at the time. I had gotten into LinkedIn, and I sent out an email in my contacts stating, "Hey, I'm no longer with the company. I moved on, but I was able to find another job working for the company I work for today, which is AV Help Desk. We're a consultant design firm out of Boston." And one of the people that actually got my email was an editor for a magazine, and they asked if I would write the story of how I was able to transition from losing my job on a Friday and starting on a Monday. And I guess the article did very well for, at the time, was a AV Technology magazine. And they came back and said, "Do you have something else?" And I wrote something else, and one thing led to another. Speed that up. Currently, I write for Commercial Integrator, and I've written for other magazines as well. The story of Red Band and AV Shout and that whole thing is, when I started doing the blogging, a couple of stories that I was writing weren't going to mesh with whatever website was looking for the content at the time. So I needed basically a place where I could. So I created a website. I called it AV Shout. I took an Excel spreadsheet of about half a dozen, maybe more websites that I had been searching for training, put that up there. That pretty much launched the site. Next thing I know, I'm getting demand for content on that site, and I don't have the people. Started reaching out to people that I saw online with interesting, things to say on either the message boards or on Twitter.
Like me, right?
like both of you guys at one point.
That's right.
Brought you guys in, and the promise that I said to you and to everybody else was, I have a platform. You guys got a voice. Go for it.
Yeah, I mean, I'll jump in right here real quick. I mean, that's pretty much how Jason and I met too. Was basically through one of these Red Band hangouts, and everybody jumped off the call. And I had seen Jason on Twitter, but it was really through the Red Band initiative there that Jason and I kind of got to know each other a little bit better, and started bouncing ideas off each other about maybe we should team up and do something. And I kind of always wanted to do a podcast, so that's kind of how this whole thing came. But what I want to do now is throw a little curveball at you, Tim and Chris. So we didn't go over this ahead of time. Are you guys up for a challenge? Let me just ask you.
I'm down for whatever.
Okay.
Don't say whatever. We'll end up playing Pac-Man.
No, it's not gonna be that bad. Okay, so I put together some ISE trivia questions. You guys up for a little challenge here?
Yeah.
Sure, let's do it.
All right.
Do I have to take a shot if I miss the answer?
Yeah, so I figured it would be a good icebreaker, a good way to kick off the episode. So, Tim, Chris, whoever buzzes in first. I don't know if you got sound effects ready and queued up, but
let's get that here. Yeah,
I don't have my sound effects, but I could probably find it somewhere.
There's a plug-in in the Hangout.
Yeah.
Well, if we had time and we actually planned out a little bit more, we could probably do that, right? But
can I get a ding or wave my hands?
Yeah, just do like a little dinging sound effect with your voice. That'll work, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so the first question to whoever accepts it. So, question number 1: ISE is a joint venture partnership between what two AV trade organizations?
Ding.
Oh, I think I heard Tim first there.
That would be a CEDIA and Infocom International.
That is correct. Cue the applause. If we had that queued up, we would be playing that right now. Tim, we should have planned this out a little better, huh? All right, moving right along. Question number 2. All right, this is a two-part question right here, okay? How many exhibitors is ISE expecting for 2015, part 1? How many attendees do they expect?
Ding for part 1.
All right, Chris, what do you got?
I have over 1,034 exhibitors currently.
That is correct. Over 1,000 current exhibitors are expected to be at the show, right from the website.
At the attendees, but I'll let my partner.
Go ahead. It's
Are they expecting 45,000 people or more?
Jack that up a few.
Tim's right. 50,000 plus attendees expected to come to ISE 2015.
And the thing that's neat about that, right, is you've got, so go back to the CEDIA and Infocom together thing, right? Last year at CEDIA there was 18,000 folks. Infocom had 35,000. Now, granted, those were both U.S. shows, right? So you've got basically the makings of both of them together in the Europe ME market. It's kind of neat, the fact that they've got basically the same engagement with the European and the Middle Eastern market. And I shouldn't even limit it to those two areas. They're going to have folks there from Asia. You're going to have folks there from South America. Obviously, we're going. There's a handful of folks I know, a handful of integrators from the U.S. that are going. But it's the same level of engagement, right? Because if you throw 18 to plus 35, there are two separate shows here in the U.S. You've got roughly what the attendance is at ISE.
Yeah, that's a good point, Tim. Definitely a lot of interest over there. A lot of growth happening in those the systems integration markets over there too. So from what I hear, moving right along, the next question: when was the first ISE trade show held, and in what location?
Well, the question, I'll throw one back to you. When was it first called ISE?
Oh, now you're getting into some.
Wow. I think we're outclassed here, Nate.
Yeah, you know what? This is the problem.
Because they've been doing this show for about 15 years, but it wasn't called ISE until about 10 years ago.
Wow, you are good. You're right on the money. So in 2004 is when the official ISE, first happened. But that was, let's see here. Yeah, so you're right on the money. About 10 years ago. But I guess before that, ISE was called something else. What was it called?
Now that is escaping my brain at this very moment, and I'm not going to cheat and Google it. So, but yeah, there was a show already in production, but they already had a gathering every year of AV professionals in Europe.
I think it started in Germany.
Yeah,
but I don't have the original title for what it was called.
Yeah, in 2004 when they branded as ISE, it was in Geneva, Switzerland. So it very well could have been in Germany before that. That's a good question. That's something you stumped the chump right here. So I don't know what that one is. All right, you guys want some more of these trivia questions, or do you want to get right into the Kickstarter stuff? What do you think?
Well, let's do some more.
Okay. These guys are hungry for more. Okay.
I get my dog barking in the background. She's giving me the signal that she needs to go out.
Uh-oh.
So I apologize ahead of time.
All right, well, you see if your dog knows the answer to this one.
No.
Let's see, where was I? Who will be giving the ISE 2015 opening keynote? Who knows this?
Oh.
Who's giving the keynote?
I did not look at that yet.
All right, it's Lars Thompson, one of Europe's most influential and futurist business masterminds. Thompson runs Future Matters, a leading research and analysis consultancy that has been used by 40% of the German stock market top 100 companies and their strategic planning. So that's where he's coming from. If you want to listen to Lars's opening keynote, sounds like might be pretty interesting.
Oh yeah.
All right.
Honestly, with the trade shows, I typically don't pay attention to who's keynoting it until that night. I try to go to the keynotes of the different ones, but typically it's not someone I've heard of before. I mean, there have been a couple times that Infocom and CEDIA have kind of knocked our socks off a few years ago. The head of Nest, guy that started Nest, keynoted CEDIA, and Infocom has had a couple notables. So.
Yeah.
So good.
Certainly a lot more to it. A lot more to it than the keynote addresses, definitely.
Yes.
So you're there to see quite a lot. Obviously, we talked about tons of exhibitors there, and it's going to be a great show. I do want to jump in to start talking about that because that's really why we brought you guys on is to talk about your journey here to ISE that's coming right up. Where I want to start with this story and where I think this is really interesting is how you guys are going to ISE and how you were able to make this happen. So maybe I'll kick this one over to you, Tim, and you can talk about sort of the very unique way in which AV Nation was able to fund this trip over to ISE.
Okay. Yeah. So we AV Nation is AV Week is our flagship. It's our weekly show, and that one has primarily centered around the pro market for the last 3 or 4 years. And we have slowly started getting people in that do residential, right? We have a couple of our regulars who are residential folks, and so this year we went to CEDIA, right? Covered CEDIA, great show in Denver this year. And while we're at CEDIA, we started having conversations with a number of folks. One of them being one of the folks that help run CEDIA in Europe, and more than one person during that show asked us if we were going to cover ISE. And I was like, well, we've never really, we've thought about it, right? Because, who wouldn't love a trip to Amsterdam? But so we start looking into it, and it was like, okay, rough estimates, rough budget numbers, you're looking at about $3,000, $3,500 a person to go over there. The thing about Infocom and CEDIA, it's U.S., right? You can jump on a Southwest flight and get pretty much anywhere for $300 or $400. Flights to Amsterdam are slightly more than that, and hotel stays and this, that, and the other. So we start looking into the budgets, and we come up with about $3,000, and we start talking with some potential sponsors, I guess is the best way to put them. And it came down to basically turning our site and the podcast and our content into one giant commercial for an extended period of time. And we're not. That's the thing is we really haven't had a whole lot of sponsors. We don't have a whole lot of commercials. Middle Atlantic is the only one that I can think of at the top of my head. And that's not the place we want to be. There's nothing wrong with spots. There's nothing wrong with ads. A lot of our contemporaries in the magazine world have them, love them to death, right? It's just not where we are. So we started going down the road of, okay, so we need X amount of dollars per person. How do we get it, right? Obviously, you can sell blood and have cookie, bakery jars. And I think it was Neto that suggested that we, what about Kickstarter, right? We had toyed around with the crowdfunding idea on a micro level, things like Patreon and or just the little tip bucket from PayPal. But this was something bigger than that, right? This was not only bigger, but it was quicker. We needed to have the money in my head and for my planning. I wanted to have everything in-house and in our account by the end of December, simply so we could buy the tickets at a reasonable price and this, that, and the other. So got together with a friend of the network. He's a local for me. I'm in St. Louis. A local videographer. Great guy, great kid. He's been with us on 2 shows already. Made a really cool Kickstarter video and said, hey, look, here's the deal. We're AV Nation. We're independent. We're an independent voice of the integrator, right? All of our folks work on a full-time basis. It's what makes us unique. Chris is a consultant. I run a design consulting firm, right? George Tucker is an engineering coordinator. Dawn Mead is a marketing and public relations professional for NetAV. We've got folks all over the gamut, but none of us do this for full time, right? None of us are bringing home a check from AV Nation, and so to ask any of those folks to come up with $3,000 out of their pocket is a little unfair. Sure. So okay, here it is. Here's the big bucket. Here's for those of us that go to church. Here's the offering bucket. Pass it around. We need $10,000, and we need it by this date. And you know what? I was shocked, and I was humbled by the response that we got, and not just from the manufacturers, right? The manufacturers, not to be arrogant, but I expected a couple of them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Good friends there. These are folks that have budgets for this, but it was really the individuals that really kind of got me. And it was the $5 and $25 and $50 donations, and the couple $100 donations from just flat out individuals who find value in what we do, and would like to see our take on ISE.
Yeah, definitely. I looked at your guys' Kickstarter page. I was following it as it was going, but just here recently, just checked it, and it looked like you guys had a pretty even spread in terms of where those donations were coming from, as far as the divide between kind of large donors and then just your real small, very grassroots level donors. And I just think it's a great idea that you guys did this. I am a big follower of Kickstarter, being in the residential space and just being kind of a home technology enthusiast. There's just a ton of stuff going on there, and so the crowdfunding model was very intriguing to me, but I wouldn't have connected those dots to use it the way you guys did, and I think that's really interesting, and I was really glad to see that you guys got supported. Chris, maybe you can touch on, Tim kind of alluded to the fact that this was at least somewhat your brainchild. Where did you kind of get the idea? Where did you connect those dots to use Kickstarter for this purpose?
Well, I mean, it all goes back to what Tim was saying about, at this point, do we want to be the NASCAR, website of AV? Lose sight of, our voices? Because, as much as we want and would love to have sponsors and all that, you enter into this, like, weird territory of what you can say as opposed to what you can't say, and we sort of still like the ability to be on the edge and to have that edge, and not have to worry about where the next sponsor is going to come from. Kickstarter made sense. It's been about 6 months now that Red Band and AV Nation got together. AV Nation has been broadcasting for now 3-4 years. I was on the early podcasts of AV Nation, and that's how me and Tim met. So, having the freedom to go on and have the conversations was important, was key. But what we're seeing now is, the website, the podcast, the social network has grown. Interaction is there. To be honest with you, I may have brought it up, but you guys know as a show, you come on, AV Week is on 170-something shows at this point. Who is listening?
180.
What's that?
We just
Tim
hit
said
180.
Well, okay, we hit 180. So, there's always that thing in the back of your head, like, yeah, we come on, we do this, it's fun, and you go back to the early, 10, 20 shows that started it all. Who were we talking to? Who was our audience? And that mystery was there. One of the things that Kickstarter did was, to me personally, it changed a lot of different things within how I view, the power, obviously, of social media and what we're doing. If I did not realize I had people listening and reading the stuff I did, or that the shows were being followed, we wouldn't have hit that.
Sure.
And now with us, now we have this. We're doing our best, and I'm sure probably we'll get into, how much of cutting corners we're doing. But
yeah. I'd like to ask one more question about crowdfunding specifically, and then I want to jump into ISE and actually talk about your guys' coverage of the event, and also how obviously the manner in which you're funding your trip will affect or maybe not affect your coverage. So just my last specific question about crowdfunding. I know, Tim, in the video, it sounded like you maybe initially had a goal of 20,000 in mind. I saw the goal on Kickstarter was actually at 10,000. So can you talk about that decision, and also how that affected maybe the number of people that you were hoping to send, or maybe that you're currently sending?
Yeah, so when we made the video, I had not fully fleshed out Kickstarter yet, right? I had signed up for an account, but I hadn't done all of the legal paperwork, and there's a lot. in the back end. You have to connect it to an Amazon payment account and this, that, and the other. So I had to do some business stuff in the back end. And Kickstarter is all or nothing. Kickstarter is all or nothing. So if you don't raise what you're asking for, you don't get anything. So we could have raised $9,999 and not gotten any of the sponsorship. So it was kind of me hedging my bets, right? 20 grand was audacious. It was really kind of swinging for the fences, going for the Super Bowl, throwing a pass with 1 yard to go in the Super Bowl, as opposed to running it with the best running back in the history in the current candidate. So
I have no idea what you're talking about.
I don't either. So I kind of backed it off and I halved it, right? 20 grand was sending 6 guys. 20 grand was sending 6 guys. 6 people, I should say, because I believe at that point we had Don Mead on the list. And you go, okay, there's 3 of us. We can work our tails off. We can absolutely do this with 3. And so that's when we halved it. And when we made it, Bill O'Donnell, who's a friend of ours, he's a tech manager out on the East Coast. He's like, you know what? I just want to go. So Bill's actually paying for his own ticket. He's staying with us at the apartment because it's all part and parcel. We're renting an apartment, and we'll get to that in a second. So basically, the folks that backed us got 4 for the price of 3.
Very nice.
And so that's been very nice. But yeah, it was honestly it was hedging my bets. I didn't know that we could get 20 grand. I didn't know we could get 10 grand, honestly. But I figured we could hit 10 before we hit 20. So.
Yeah, no, there's certainly some nuance to crowdfunding, and so it sounds like you guys made the right move, I think, by setting it to a goal that you could attain, especially with Kickstarter. It's all or nothing proposition. So anyways, I just think that's really cool. I think it really shows that you guys are providing a valuable service to the AV community that you were able to get funded, and so I congratulate you guys for that. I think that's awesome. Let's jump into ISE. Let's talk about your guys' coverage. You're heading over there. Maybe we'll start out. Either one of you can jump in here and just tell us from a high level your plans. When are you guys heading over there? I understand that you're, I believe, going to have a booth. So maybe just paint with the broad strokes and let us know about your plans, and then we'll jump into the details.
Yeah, and before you guys jump in and answer that question, we do have people watching live. So if you're watching this live and you have a question for Tim or Chris or about ISE 2015, feel free to use the Q&A section of the Google Hangout there, and we'll read your questions if you've got them. So now I'll kick it over, Chris. Tim, who wants to take this one?
Go ahead.
Tim, start off. I'll add color.
All right, that'll work. So here's what we've got, right? We all fly out from our respective cities on Sunday. The one thing that I've learned, at least, I've never been to any, how do I put this? I've never been this far from home. So I from St. Louis, it's a 7-hour time difference. So this will be a unique experience for me. So we all leave, the 3 boys leave from New York. JFK, they fly through Iceland, through Reykjavik. Out of St. Louis, I hit St. Louis, Chicago, and then Chicago straight over to Amsterdam, which is apparently a nicer trip because I can sleep for 8 hours. One of the kind of the cost-cutting measures that we did in the budget of $30,000, $3,500 a person, in that was hotel. Again, a Chris Neto idea was, let's try something called Airbnb. Which I'll be honest, I knew very vaguely of, but basically the short version of that is you rent somebody's house or apartment for 2-3 days a week, and it was about $900 or $1,000 cheaper to do that than to get hotels for the week for everybody. So we're renting a very nice apartment. It's 3 blocks from the RAI. We can walk there. The couple that we're renting it from has been very, very nice. We've communicated back and forth since the end of December, 1st of January when we first booked it. And he's like, yeah, you can walk to the RAI in like 3 minutes. I'm like, sign me up. So
you guys are right on the bleeding edge there. You got crowdfunding, Airbnb. I mean, you got all the bases covered.
We did
Yeah,
our
I
I've-
just
homework,
need,
man.
you know, I need a little, you know, some Homer glasses and a nice beard, and I can become a hipster.
Exactly.
Yeah, I've heard good things about Airbnb, and you know, it seems like a very cost-effective alternative to just doing the hotel rooms and whatever they're going to charge you the week of a big show like that. And you touched on the RAI complex. Another trivia question for you. Does anybody know what that stands for?
Really awesome international.
Radically awesome international.
Oh, not quite, not quite. Well, it's actually something that I can't really pronounce, but I will do my best to prove myself as a dumb American that is ignorant of every other language. Ridge Wheel and Automobile Industry. That's
Oh, nice.
and it's so obviously an automotive field, that's the purpose that this complex was created for. And that's neither here nor there. Get back to your so Airbnb. We were talking about Airbnb and how your trip and why you guys are going, and your plan for coverage for ISE. What else you got?
So we land on Monday morning, various times, right? We have been very very there. This has been like one giant blessing after another. So in talking with the folks at ISE, we are what's called a media partner, similar to what we are with InfoComm and with CDO. What that means is you get access to the press room. Your logo gets on their website, which has been kind of cool and neat to see.
Yeah.
AV Nation along with see these long-standing publications that have been around for 50 years.
Hey, who let that riffraff in there?
Exactly. And I was emailing back and forth, and I said, she's laying out everything, and I'm getting ready to sign my life away, and I said, just out of curiosity, do you have some place where we can record? I said, that's kind of what we do. We gather people together. It's a podcast, blah blah blah. Next email I get from her, she goes, well, we have one booth left. I'm like, okay, cool, we got a booth. So now, don't get me wrong, this is not Crestron's booth, right? This is not the second coming of the Extron booth. This is 3 meters by 3 meters. Let's be fair about what it is. But it's a booth. It's our first time at ISE. It's a booth. It's really cool having it there. We've been able to do some really cool things. We're doing a giveaway now with Crestron. We're giving away a GoPro. If you're the fastest person to put together this huddle space thing, we're doing AV Week there. We're doing a couple other podcasts in the booth, and so it's kind of turned into our center of operations there in the 7th Hall. And once we got that, it was like, holy cow, this is really real. We've got a booth. We're going to give away at InfoComm last year. We had some lip balm. We're giving away some of that, and just passing out stuff and saying, "Hey, Europe, here we are, and this is what we do. And if you like this, come listen to us."
Yeah, Tim, I think we got a visitor in the background there. Have her wave to the audience. Very nice.
I have a One Direction T-shirt too.
Awesome. So Tim, you talked about the sort of travel and accommodations, and clearly you guys are sensitive to your budget because of the way the trip was funded, and certainly you want to be transparent to your donors, and obviously that's great. How do you think, maybe Chris, you can field this one, how do you feel like, not travel, but the coverage of the show, how do you feel like that's affected by the fact that you guys are crowdfunded to go over there? How does that change your plans for coverage?
Well, I mean, we have our responsibility to the donors from the crowdsourcing. So, we had various levels of donations, and a couple of those donations involved us doing booth tours and some coverage there as well. So those go in, those get set in stone, and those are part of our schedule to begin with. What is now my responsibility to this is, you had a lot of $5, donations and $20 donations from, for lack of a better term, fans of the show or people that are friends of the show. So we owe, in my opinion, I owe them the experience of going there. So what we haven't divulged yet, and we're going to be talking about here, is a couple of things that we're doing at ISE that are going to be a little different than probably most. Is similar to what Nate put out this week. And Nate, I did see your vlog. I'll be attempting the vlog. My goal is to have the Kickstarter donors next to me on the plane between me and George Tucker, and watching George snore and so on and so forth. The whole ride. I want to be able to, as soon as I find a hotspot, drop that information out and let the people travel 8 hours with us and see the yucky food and do that sort of stuff and prove that I'm not sitting with the cattle in the back. That's first thing. The other part to this is that the B&B. We were able to get a place that was cheaper than a hotel, but bigger. Obviously, it seems it's for 6 people, they say. In our view, it's probably more for 4, but they want, they said you could sleep up to 6.
When how many you guys bringing?
There's 4 of us, 3 on the Kickstarter.
Wait a minute. So you've got 2 extra beds, is what you're telling me?
Yes.
You're good with math.
Hey, I'm just saying. No, we don't have plane tickets. Those plane tickets would be too expensive. I'm not trying to invite myself over.
Nate, coming from the East Coast, it would be relatively inexpensive. Jason out there, we'll have to sell a couple children, but you
will have to go the other way around the earth.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll meet you guys over there.
I'm just saying, if you invite yourself over somebody's B&B, is it still as rude as if you invite them to your house? And if it's in another country, do those rules still apply? Anyway, I might have overstepped a little bit there, but just thought crossed my mind. You got 2 extra beds.
We have the 2 extra beds. We have 4 people there, but the bonus to this B&B is that we have a kitchenette, living room, dining room set up. Okay, it's a house. So what does that do to us? And we have Wi-Fi. We're going to go MTV Road Rule style. We're going to be broadcasting from the apartment at those hours, at U.S. hours. We're going to try to go live after we just spent the full day at the show. Go out, do what we got to do at night, whether it's going to the Crest Fest or going to the Kramer party or the other event that we have. We all got to come back, and we're going to give you a recap right then and there. You may see, Bill O'Donnell walk by in a shower cap, but you know what?
Tim, do you know about this? Is this news to you?
Tim's been having to temper this whole thing.
I gotta ask, who's bringing the selfie stick?
That would be Mr. Neto.
Yeah, I got asked a couple times already. Can we do the AV selfie? Just to put the record straight, we're not doing a music video. If we do get the pictures and stuff like that, I'll compile them. I'll put something together. Reason being is a couple of our team members cannot get together and get that musical piece done that we would like. But we are working on something bigger and better for InfoComm 15 if you want to start forecasting for when you can get your selfie stick out there, Jason.
Okay.
We'll let the audience make some predictions here.
Yeah. Let me jump in for a minute here. So, I'm very interested in your coverage here, since I will be tuning in from afar, since I didn't get the invite to come stay at your B&B this year, but that's okay. I will be following from Twitter just like everybody else, and so I really want to be with you guys there and just kind of digitally following along from booth to booth to booth and just kind of seeing what you're doing. And I don't know, how do you guys plan to cover the show? I think the fact that you guys are all industry insiders gives you some perspective kind of into the industry. You're not, journalists, as Tim mentioned before, but you have kind of a background in that and a passion for that. What are you guys thinking of booth coverage? What's your plan of attack going to be, and how should we tune in, via Twitter or via certain hashtags? What advice would you give to those who are, going to be there, in spirit, via Twitter? How can we kind of follow along with you guys?
So here's what we've got. We've got, obviously we have a handful of booth tours already scheduled on a daily basis, just like we do with InfoComm and the other ones.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing that we've gotten an awful lot of advice, and Brock McGinnis, who was one of our Kickstarter backers, He's been to ISE before. He's given a lot of advice. Brad Grimes, who's with Infocom, has given us a lot of advice. There are 12 halls here, right? Think about that for a second. This is the size of Infocom and CDA and something else on steroids. So the actual square footage of this is pretty massive. So the one thing that's interesting, if you ever got a glimpse at our spreadsheet, and you know, God love me, I'm a director of operations, so I like my spreadsheets. We had spreadsheets for both CDA and Infocom, and you know, this and this and this, and the guys will tell you, I'm a hard, I drive them hard. You know, you've got something every half an hour, every hour, and this, that, and the other. At ISE, we've got these big giant blocks that just says walk the floor. There's a reason for that. First of all, it's a massive floor. Second, my main goal here, and this is just kind of one of my initiatives for 2015 in general, which is why I'm really excited about going to ISE, is to take the U.S.-centric AV professional who listens to us, who reads SCN, who reads Commercial Integrator, who watches you guys, take them either willingly or kicking and screaming into the non-U.S. market, right? There are 7 billion people on this planet. There's only 330 million of them who happen to live between the Pacific and the Atlantic, right?
Yep.
God love us, and Nate said it, we're big dumb Americans, right? We think there's nothing outside this world.
Yep.
There's an entire world, an entire industry outside of this. I want to get those stories. I want to find out what kind of challenges it takes to put in a Crestron system in a 1,000-year-old castle, right? I want to know that. Why? Because we're going to run into not a 1,000-year-old castle in North Dakota, but we're going to run into something, right? We're going to learn from these folks, and they're going to learn from us. But what I'm looking to expand, not just our listeners and stuff like that, and because there is part of that, but I want to tap into the knowledge base of these folks who have been doing it outside of the U.S. for a number of years. Infocom released a report last fall that said by 2016 the Asia Pacific market is going to surpass the U.S. market if nothing changes. And let's just be honest here, nothing's going to change. So let's put that right there. The Asia Pacific market is going to surpass the U.S. in market size. In other words, the importance. Crestron, AMX, Kramer, all these folks who know us and love us. I'm not saying they're going to go away. I'm not saying that Randy Klein's going to move the headquarters of Crestron from New Jersey to Mumbai. Not saying that. But what I am saying is they're going to start looking at those markets because they're going to be more important than us from a monetary standpoint. So we need to find out what they're doing right to increase their market size. There are some socioeconomic reasons why their markets are growing, their economies are growing, and their middle class is growing, and there's some of that too. But those integrators who are in Kuwait, who are in France, who are in Brussels, are doing things that we never thought of, or are running into situations that we may not have run into yet. And I want to find out those stories and get that knowledge base and get that conversation started now, as opposed to either never starting it, right, or trying to start it in a kind of hurried, hey, I need something from you right now type of way. You start a relationship, you start a conversation based on friendship, based on mutual interest, and you can help each other out as you both grow up in this industry. So that right there is what I'm most excited about. And then you've got the things like, you know, the new cool toys and this, that, and the other. Last year at ISE was when Biamp released Forte, right? I've heard rumors of some other things. There's a particular manufacturer out of New Jersey that is possibly going to be doing a pro version of their Ping or something similar to that. So I've heard rumors of that and some other stuff. But really just kind of the man on the street, woman on the street of the Euro-Asia, Euro-ME market and what they think about audiovisual.
You know, that's a good point. I mean, you mentioned the castles, which is kind of like an obvious difference. I mean, there's I spent some time over in England, and you know, you see the built-in, you know, 14 something, you know, and just the age of the buildings and how long they've stood over there. You know, you do run into some pretty interesting issues and thatch roofs and all kinds of some crazy stuff. But like one of the bigger practical things that I'm interested in is more like the electrical codes and stuff like that. Because you know, I had been at a company previously that did a lot of video conferencing, and we, you know, had some jobs in like Brussels and overseas and all various places that I'd never been before. And all of a sudden, you know, a one-gang J-box, you know, was different. A two-gang J-box was a different spec. There were, you know, there's all these different things, and we had to not use inches anymore. We had to use, you know, the metric system, and there's all kinds of funky things like that that you really don't think about being kind of, you know, with the blinders on in the U.S. market. So what would be really interesting to me is maybe like some little cheat sheets or helps to like, okay, let's say I got a one-off in another country, you know, in Belgium somewhere. What do I need to know as an integrator? How let's say I had a salesperson over there and I could get some business. You know, where do I start in learning the electrical and being able to communicate with the trades over there? I think that's something that I'd be really interested in finding out more. I don't know what you guys think about that.
My whole thing with the trip over there, Tim focused on the bigger picture. I'm looking at the smaller picture. I want to know who is doing my role in the European market. Who is the Jason Griffin of Europe? That sort of thing. Specifically, I've done work outside the United States before. A lot of it has been I'm here working with contractors out there. But you know, the business practices are different. You know, in some parts of the world, consultants are bypassed and they're working directly with manufacturers, or the integrators bypassed altogether, and they deal with the manufacturer, and the manufacturer is the one that basically then does the bid process and says, hey, you know, we have a client who's looking for X amount of stuff, and who's going to get it, you know, and that comes in that way. I'm interested in getting those stories from our equivalents over there. You know, I think that a lot of times here we are in the bubble. You know, we obviously have talked about that. You know, we very rarely get a glimpse of how business is done elsewhere. Bill O'Donnell, who was actually going with us, worked on contract for Lockheed Martin, and he was out in Qatar for about 18 months. You know, the stories that he brought back, and I had him writing A Stranger in a Strange Land for Red Band at the time, to talk about, you know, he was walking into buildings that were being built, and they were being built with, you know, bamboo holding up mortar and no back boxes, and the floors look like this, and, you know, and where's the codes, and oh my God, not what we're used to. You know, speaking from my experience of living overseas for the summers, for example, you know, when I go there in the summertime and I am staying at my home in Portugal, I can't run a wire. It's concrete. You know, I know what I'm going into in the Netherlands. If the construction houses are the same, we're basically going to be staying in what is equivalent to a basement with that damp feel, because you got concrete walls, concrete floors, not wood, not insulation. It's just it's different than what we're used to here. And I think that is what I want to hear from the people that are there. So my connecting on Twitter to a lot of the people out there, and you know, you know that we're having an AV tweet up, and a big part of the whole AV tweet up is just not to bring in the manufacturers, but to hear the stories of the people and the challenges that they face out there, and then be able to put them on a scale and say, wow, I never dealt with that here. You know, oh, I can probably help you because this is what we did in that same situation.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
There was conversation.
So hey, Chris, and I'll jump in here. Chris and Tim, we're kind of running up against our time here, and we certainly want to respect your time and the people who are tuning in tonight. And I want to actually, Chris, you alluded to the AV tweet up that you guys are going to be throwing over there, and I want to make sure that we give that event its due, especially for the people in our audience who will be attending ISE and may want to join you. So can you talk about that event and what people can expect from that?
Short of it, it's Tuesday. Wednesday, 5 o'clock at the HD Base T booth. And a little different than what we've done at Infocom or at CEDIA before. We're actually having it on the show floor. I mean, this is, again, from what I understand, ISE parties on the floor as opposed to the Infocoms where they take you out via bus and send you down to wherever they're going to send you to party. So we're having it at the HD Base T booth. As of tonight, I have over 80 people signed up, which is more than whatever I expected. I mean, the most we had for Infocom, we hit 172 reservations, RSVPs at the time. I thought that was phenomenal. Going into this, to think maybe 50 people, how many people could I know? How many people could I reach? To have 80 people sign up that are interested in social media and networking with a lot of different people and bringing them together, that's the whole that's the whole story right there, man.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. And one other question: will the cameras be running at the after party in the red light district?
At the apartment, not there.
That's a George Tucker question, and the reason I say George Tucker because he's not here to defend himself. So.
All right,
George
guys.
is the man on the street, guys. So you never know where we're going to pop up with our cameras with these video logs.
Right.
It's funny you brought up metric system and stuff like that. We got some things planned that will show dumb Americans mixing it up with the metric system. So I don't want to give out too much. I mean, we're not the only ones covering the show, so I don't want to give out too much as far as what we got planned, but expect a lot of the unexpected from us and a lot of candid moments. That's what we're trying to get. And, like I said earlier, I want Nate to be standing there next to us when, I have to do a shot of some oddball Icelandic drink at a bar. I'm going to give you that experience. I don't know what they make vodka out of over there. It could be cabbage for all I know. I'll do whatever. I care less.
All right, guys. Well, I can tell you that I, for one, am really looking forward to your coverage of the show as somebody who respects what you do and is going to be watching the show from afar. I really look forward to seeing what you guys bring to the table for ISE, and it's coming right up. So we're definitely excited for that. I want to wrap up with just sort of getting a real short prediction from each of you, and we'll start with Chris, and then Tim will give you the very last word here tonight. So maybe give us your show prediction, what you think ISE will be about in 5 words or less.
Oh, that's a tough one.
No, I think I could do it. 2 big for 3 days.
Very nice. And Tim, we'll throw that one at you, and then we'll let you just kind of give your final thoughts on AV Nation's trip over to Amsterdam.
Okay. Predictions for next week. 4K nanocrystals huddle spaces.
Quantum dots.
Quantum dots. Well, nanocrystal quantum dots.
Whatever they're calling them nowadays.
Tomato.
All right, great. And like I said, Tim, we'll give you the floor here to kind of make some closing remarks about AV Nation's trip over to ISE.
Honestly, the final closing remarks is just to say thank you again to all of our Kickstarter people, obviously, first and foremost. These are the people who reach in their pockets and forewent pizzas and lattes and stuff for us. So that's first and foremost. And then just, to you guys, thank you for letting us come on and talk about it. Excited. It's Wednesday and Sunday can't get here soon enough. Honestly, I'm very, very excited. I'm not even cautiously optimistic, which is my normal MO. I am ecstatically optimistic about next week. Not because I think we're going to do, oh my God, we're going to be the best media coverage ever, because we're not, right? We're one of 50, 100 people covering it. AV Nation has a unique position. We cover it from the position of the integrator. I think we do it really well, and I'm really excited to see how our team tackles this new adventure. So.
All right, wonderful. Well, we will be looking forward to it as well. Tim and Chris, thank you both so much for taking the time to join us here on AV Shop Talk Live. We really appreciate it, and we wish you all of the best and safe travels out to ISE 2015.
All right, we will talk shop with you in the next edition of AV Shop Talk.